It's time for more Mets stories with your favorite Mets, soon to be Mets today. I'm Mike Janella. Sam McWilliams is with us. Sam, how you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thank you.
Great to have you here. And soon to be Mets, I say, because you haven't thrown a pitch for the squad yet, but you've made some headlines getting acquired this offseason, even though you've never pitched in the big leagues at all. Sports Illustrated story, revamped your whole career over the last summer. First new player signed by the Mets in the Steve Cohen era. So there's a lot going on, a lot I want to talk to you about, but let's just talk with you about you for a second to start. A lot of Mets fans probably don't know who you are yet. So who are you as a pitcher, as a person? What are you hoping people know about you up here in Queens?
Man, I live a pretty simple life. I'm pretty laid back, just kind of keep to myself, get all the baseball stuff done every day and kind of relax at this point, especially during, obviously the pandemic, not a ton going on right now. So just trying to stay safe and,
I mean, that's a good priority. Stay safe now and then figure out the baseball stuff once we can get back to it, hopefully as soon as possible. So let's go back to that decision-making process. I want to start there because something people should know about you too is that you chose the Mets. So people can Google your whole career trajectory, but long story short, you're with the Tampa Bay Rays and there's no minor leagues to play in last year. You're down at their alternate training site, don't get to appear for the big league team, but you revamp everything. They decide to let you be a free agent still though after the season. And you've got all of baseball coming after you. I mean, do you remember how many teams it were, ballpark, that were talking to you?
I think it was right around 15. Yeah. So,
all right. So you're in demand. That's a good number. And
there's definitely, definitely a lot of firsts this year. Sorry.
No, keep going. You're the star of the show today, man. What are the firsts you going through?
No. So obviously, a unique year, a lot going on. I really had no idea what to expect going into this winter. And once free agency, kicked off and we started getting some phone calls, so I was like, okay, we're going to be in a pretty good spot. And at that point, it was just kind of picking the right fit.
So what about the Mets was the right fit? What made you pick them and here to decide this is my next step?
Well, obviously with the new ownership and, everything going on, the buzz around the team, I thought the atmosphere there would be pretty fun, especially with all the star players and especially now getting Lindor, Carrasco, all those guys. I think it was just kind of a no-brainer for me.
But that's the trivia question about you that I'm going to love because, yeah, it's been a huge offseason and it was super anticipated by all the fans. But, yeah, Steve Cohen finalizes his purchase of the Mets. And then 2 weeks later, Marcus Stroman decides to come back. But you're the first new guy to come into the organization under his ownership and his regime. How did that feel when everyone's waiting for this huge offseason? You're kind of the first domino to come in. That's kind of cool, right?
Yeah, it was definitely really cool. I wouldn't necessarily claim that right now. Being the new guy, minor leaguers still have made
That's
my
fair.
debut. But it was definitely funny seeing the reactions on Twitter and stuff like that. A lot of funny comments.
And that was it was 6 days before Thanksgiving or something, right? That you found out. Was that the best turkey you ever had in your life? A couple days later?
Absolutely. Nothing better.
Oh man, I love it. So I think the one thing that people can relate to with you specifically, because you have 15 major league teams coming after you, and we can all relate to that, or joining the Mets and getting that major league contract spot on the 40-man roster already out of the gate. But I think job hunting with the world the way it is now, everything being digital, you had to do that too, right? You were sending people Dropbox links and all your stuff was on your phone. And I'm sure you couldn't really pitch in person for too many scouts or representatives. What was that process like? Because we're all kind of sitting here at home on Zoom all the time. What was that like for you trying to score a deal?
Yeah, obviously different, than the majority of years. We didn't have any scouts allowed at any of the alternate site games or anything like that. So I basically had no idea who had even seen my info, seen any video. So I basically had all my my game reports on my phone, and I was kind of sending those out to whoever's interested. Kind of just getting it out there in any way. And that was really it. So once we had all this interest, it was kind of a shocker to me, just because I had no idea what to expect. I didn't have any crazy expectations or anything. Ended up being in a really good spot.
And then it kind of rocket ships because you get this Sports Illustrated story written about you after you signed. Tom Verducci, one of the most respected baseball writers we've got. And they make you the daily cover. It's a full picture of you, the big headline, why'd the Mets sign this guy? And it's a full feature. Was that a surprise, unexpected? Do you like that national attention? Because that's pretty cool, if you ask me.
It was definitely a surprise. I didn't know anything about the daily cover or anything like that. Obviously, when Tom Verducci reaches out to you, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you say
But
you pick
I
up
was,
that phone call pretty fast, right?
yeah, I was just assuming it was going to be an article somewhere. I didn't really expect too much of it. And then when the article came out and the cover, I was like, oh, this is pretty legit. This is a big deal. That was definitely cool.
Does that put any extra pressure on yourself? Because the gist of the article is basically, hey, this guy has never been above AAA, struggled a bit the last time he was in AAA, but everything under the hood changed last year. Now the Mets are taking a big shot on him. They kind of made you the poster boy for the future, like analytics and pitching scouting. Any pressure, or do you thrive on that kind of stuff?
I think when I was first about to make my decision and thinking about the New York media and the spotlight, I was almost a little nervous. But then once I got closer and closer to the decision, I was like, this is awesome. This is like what everyone dreams of, like New York, the biggest city, biggest market. Like, I think it's really, really cool to be in the center of everything.
How much was that part of your decision-making process? You don't have to say what other teams you were, thinking about, but getting to be in this market, was that what part of that calculus?
I wouldn't say it was a huge part. It's definitely, obviously it's a bonus. It would be really fun to play in New York. It wasn't anything like a make or break, the market size or whatever it was, but just a feeling, that everyone gave me, that I talked to, and the level of interest they showed right from the jump. It was pretty clear cut for me.
Which the interest, it kind of manifests itself in the type of deal you got. You get a major league contract, not a minor league contract. You got a spot on the 40-man roster. Does that help a lot too? I mean, that's got to be good for your mental security, right? Just knowing, hey, I got a little bit of job security going into spring training or this season. How big of a deal is that for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from my experience, the past couple of years, seeing guys that, especially in AAA, like, you can pitch really well, and even though, if you're not on the roster, it just takes that one extra step for you to get your opportunity, get your chance, because obviously someone else has to be taken off. And just me seeing that, I decided that it'd be better to obviously not play it safe, but if I have this big league offer on the table, for me, it's a no-brainer.
And the Mets are kind of banking on you in a couple of ways, because they give you that offer, which is good job security. And they just sent you just came back from the rookie career development program, right?
Yep, that's right.
So for anyone who doesn't know, it's kind of it's a program where teams send a couple of their different prospects to go. And I mean, you can explain better than me, you were there, but they basically teach you how to transition to the big league life. So I think the Mets don't send you unless they think you're going to need that information, right? So what did you learn? What was that like down there? And what did you think when they told you you'd be going down?
Yeah, obviously very appreciative of, them thinking highly enough of me to let me represent the team and go on that, even though it was just Zoom, to be in attendance for all the meetings.
I say go down there, but things are a little bit different this year.
Right,
still.
right.
That's cool.
No, it was definitely a lot of good info. We had a lot of big guest speakers. We had like Charles Barkley, actually Francisco Lindor was on there, a few other big names, and kind of just covering all the little things that come with, being an athlete, being around a lot of media, a lot of fans. Obviously, well, in a normal year, being around fans, interacting with fans, just little things, the way you carry yourself and what to expect.
What do you think is your biggest takeaway if you do a break camp with the big squad this year? What do you think is the number one thing you're going to remember from what you learned?
I would say, honestly, just being comfortable with your surroundings, being comfortable with who you are, and not trying to do too much, like, especially if you have a bad game or whatever it is, rough outing, and someone's kind of getting on you with questions or whatever. It's okay to say no sometimes. It's okay to, turn the question around, or maybe not even like comment too in depth on something, whatever it is. If I have a bad outing, kind of just take responsibility and say, obviously I'm gonna take these steps to improve every outing, every day.
Now I'm wondering if you're doing any of these like mind tricks you learned on me with the questions I'm asking, and are you playing it straight with me, or are you practicing for the season?
I guess you could count this as practice, but right. No mind games today.
Appreciate that. Well, I mean, you're learning from some of the best, and you mentioned like Charles Barkley, not even in baseball, but when you get back to your game and spring training, I mean, this is a great squad to land on for a pitcher. talking about picking brains and learning from people. I mean, you can walk over to Jacob deGrom. You've got Carlos Carrasco now, Marcus Stroman, even the Seth Lugos. I mean, there's so many guys that you can learn from and learn alongside. Who would you love to, say, down in Port St. Lucie, go to first? And what would you ask them now that you have a chance to maybe talk to some new teammates?
I mean, obviously, DeGrom would be a wonderful guy to talk to about anything pitching. I mean, even though maybe he almost makes it look too easy sometimes. Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to picking everyone's brain, really. But if I had to pick one, probably going to be him.
What would you ask him?
Probably how he throws a slider first. How he throws it so hard. That's one thing I've been messing around with, just kind of manipulating like different grip, different hand positions, getting that. Obviously, he throws his fastball really hard, so it makes the slider that much better. But kind of just like thinking about his process or his thought process.
Let's talk about yours, because I mean, you just dropped a couple nuggets there. How you're working on the harder slider, and the velo obviously helps play the slider off of that. And let's go back to last year, how you ended up getting so much attention, because you really kind of revamped everything. Your velo's up. You're up in the high 90s now for your fastball. You're trying the slider more. Swings and misses were up a little bit. What was it that you did last year, either physically, mentally, that helped you change your game that much?
So in 2019, basically what happened was I'd always thrown a 2 and 4 seam. And just over the year, I had kind of, both of them were almost harming each other. So I didn't have much command of either of them. They weren't necessarily getting the movement that I was looking for from either of them. So they're both basically pretty average, and I didn't have great feel for them. So going into that winter, I decided to scrap the 2 seam and then focus basically long tossing, staying behind the 4 seam, trying to get that carry, that vertical movement. And that ended up resulting in more swings and misses. And then the velo came with that also, just kind of cleaning up the delivery in general. And then, like you said, makes the slider a little bit better when you can throw it harder, and you have that separation on the 4 seam. So if your 4 seam's carrying more, you're going to have a bigger difference between that and the slider break, which definitely helps.
So when you drop the 2 seam, you stop throwing the sinker. You mentioned you kind of went from 2 average pitches to 1 really good one. Is that a mental thing, because now you can focus more on just the 4 seamer, or is that a physical thing too that makes it a difference, or a little bit of both? I don't know.
It was definitely a blend of both. So and obviously throwing two pitches, well, they're different pitches, but 2 different thought processes, 2 different outcomes. Going to 1, just a 4 seamer, was really simple, and my only goal was, like I said, stay behind it, get the like true carry. And with that, once even just playing catch, I can notice like my feel for, where it's going, what to predict with the movement is just tenfold what it was in the 2019 season. And that just made my life so much easier.
Yeah, but you can go from like 95 to 98, I'm sure. In your line of work, that does make life easier. I mean, I love hearing that kind of stuff, because people always assume, oh, this guy increases velocity. It was just more time in the weight room or more long toss. But it could be as simple as, hey, I'm just going to drop this one pitch, and it changes everything. But the one thing, because I was looking up to see on your scouting report, MLB.com, I don't know if it's you that's got to call them or me or somebody else. They still got your fastball in like a 55 grade, because they think you're still topping out in the mid 90s. So someone's got to get that updated to get that scouting report a little more true to form for you now.
That's all right. Hopefully I throw enough this year up in the upper 90s that'll change a little bit, and people will make adjustments. But
Beautiful.
Not too worried about what's online as of now. As long as I know I got it.
I love it. Yeah, as long as you got it, and then the guys in the box against you will find out soon enough. So does that change your approach then? Because now that you weren't a huge strikeout guy in the minors, the track record we had before last year, which again, you spent just at the alternate training site, scrimmages and all that kind of stuff. So are you going to try, now that you have this new mix, to change your approach, try and get more Ks, or are you just going to do what you were doing, but maybe with better results now?
So something else that I thought really helped was last year at the alternate site, and then spring training before that, was my first time in the bullpen. So when I was starting in the 2019 season, there were times where I would get caught up in like almost cruise control as a starter, because you're like, oh, well, I have to go I want to go 6 innings. I want to save the bullpen, take some load off these guys. And it's almost like a fine balance between like saving some, not necessarily, and being aggressive at the same time. So when I went to the bullpen, it kind of helped me get that aggressiveness back from pitch 1. like, oh, like I got to do everything I can. Like I'm gonna, I want to be as aggressive as possible and kind of like, for lack of a better term, bully guys. As well, like say, like in that the shorter stints made it a lot easier for me, at least thought process wise, to just attack guys and go after it and fill up the zone.
Is that how you see your role with the Mets moving forward? Jeremy Hefner, a pitching coach, he said you probably project as that multi-inning reliever, swing guy. Is that how you're now seeing your career, your mentality going forward?
After doing both now, I don't think I really have too much of a preference. I do like the bullpen. I like the adrenaline, getting your name called, going in the game. I'd definitely be open to starting. I've always loved starting. Really, wherever I can fit in the best, I'm open to.
We'll find out where. I mean, there's so many good arms here, and I think it's a good problem for the Mets to have, trying to figure out where to put all this stuff and where it's most maximized. Are you going to bring any stuff you learned about, whether it's sequencing or bullpen or starting? I mean, everyone talks about Tampa Bay, and for good reason. They've had this track record of taking guys that maybe had not so much success before and then turning them into real great weapons on the mound. What did you learn down there at like pitching university that you can bring up here? Anything you can share with other people, or is it all stuff specific to you?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say it's anything. They don't do anything crazy different from other organizations. They have a lot of info and they relay it well. They basically, at least what I got from it is, hey, you do this well, let's exploit this. Other than that, just throw a lot of strikes, get ahead early, stay ahead, put guys away. Really just the mindset shift for me was what played the most.
So what do you do now maybe to keep those lessons? Because you're getting all new coaching, new instruction, new teammates, new settings. What's it that clicks in your head to keep those lessons you learned locked in?
Just stay in attack mode, really. Like obviously bullpens right now, my emphasis is just throw everything in the zone. If I can throw my breaking ball in the zone, that's going to be huge for me, especially early. Really just attacking guys, never letting up, especially with the fastball too. Don't be afraid to challenge any guys, regardless of who they are. You'll get good results if you're throwing a lot of strikes early and often. And then at that point, it's easy to throw a slider in the dirt. If you have a feel for it in the zone, it's easy to get 0-2 and then, all right, let's throw the nasty one,
Yeah, then you're in charge and you're playing chess and you got all the control. What were those days like, or those weeks at the training site? Because you made it to the taxi squad one call up, right? But you never got to be up at the big league level. So, I mean, was it repetitive? What was it, a game every day? How often were you pitching? What was it like being at an alternate site, kind of just working under the hood all year?
It was basically, if you've ever been to a GCL game or like an extended game, that's basically what it was, with no fans, minimal, staff everywhere. A lot of times we were playing at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., noon in the Florida summer, super humid.
That's got to be fun.
Yeah, obviously no fans. You don't have like too much adrenaline going, but you obviously got to stay locked in. Like you're getting ready, you could be called up any second.
What did you?
Yeah. No,
what did you? I was just curious because you mentioned like the adrenaline, and you're a guy last year trying to up your velo and focus on the four-seamer. And a lot of times, I'm sure having fans there or having that real life competition really helps you with that. But you didn't have that. So what did you do to keep yourself amped up?
I think so. My focus now is basically try to be as efficient as possible with my delivery, and that way I'm all synced up. I feel really good. The timing is good. The tempo is good. I have some rhythm, and then when you do get out there, it's still obviously some really good hitters, good prospects, and even some big league hitters at the alternate site. So you still do have that adrenaline, even though it's your buddy and you guys have faced each other 57 times in the last 3 weeks. It's still there a little bit, and it's definitely a little easier to drift off mentally, but we made it really fun.
I try and relate to that. And it's like when I play my brother, like back in PlayStation 2 on the show back in the day, it's still playing the same guy at home every day, but that competitiveness is still there, even if it's with your friends. So you learn everything about yourself there last year, and the Rays, they let you loose, and now you're on the Mets. Now that you've had this whole year of tweaking your stuff, revamping your approach, what do you think, if you make this big league team this upcoming season, what do you bring to this pitching staff? What are your biggest strengths?
Hopefully mid to high 90s fastball, like you said, and then trying to stay, get that carry, get that vertical movement, stay behind the ball. I think that'll also help with the command and just the confidence. And then I actually added a new curveball recently that I'm gonna throw in bullpens. So it has pretty good break and good velo. I'm keeping it around like 80 miles an hour. And then now at this point, I really just want to like hammer out the feel for it, like figure out where to start it, where it's going to end up for a strike, for a ball, kind of just taking it day by day there.
What kind of curve are we talking here? You got a 12-6 or a little something different, same arm slot as the other two pitches?
Yeah, so right now it's pretty close to 12-6. I think my axis has been around, like, if you imagine a clock, around like 630-ish, trying to keep it around there and trying to basically, with a certain amount of depth, try to throw it as hard as possible.
Man, if you can add that, I mean, you've already got the, high 90s fastball. If the slider bites and now you got the curve, that's a pretty good repertoire, especially if you're coming out of the pen and just ramping up for an inning or two. I'm looking forward to seeing what you could do, unleashing it this year. Are you excited, nervous? What are the feelings now heading into the season?
Yeah, definitely a little bit of butterflies, but for sure more excited than anything to contribute in whatever way they need me to.
Hey, man, well, we're all looking forward to it because obviously we've learned from teams like the Rays and anybody that's been successful the last few years, arms. You need as many as you can get to make it in the game these days. All right, we've talked about Sam, the pitcher, a lot. I want to talk about you as a person. You mentioned you're super chill, laid back guy, but let's learn about you off the field. What do you like to do for fun? Now, how are you spending your days now in the off season, for example?
So I recently retired from the PlayStation and picked up golf.
That's a big switch.
I feel like that's like a life transition around 25 years old. I just got the golf bug. So I've been golfing a little bit. Other than that, I really don't do too much. I keep it pretty simple. I have a dog. We like to go on a lot of walks around, like when I was staying in Seattle, we go out by the water, go on some long walks, enjoy the city, grab some good coffee.
You are you a good golfer? I know you just kind of started, but what are we talking here?
I've definitely come a long way. This summer I started, obviously that was probably the only thing we could safely do, in public, being out in the open, with just a couple guys from the team. I was really bad at first. I was using my grandpa's old clubs that were in Florida. And then once I actually kind of got the itch a little bit, I decided to get some of my own clubs that were long enough and, fit me properly. And now I'm starting to get a little dialed in, we're shooting around like 90.
All right.
Making progress. So yeah.
Hey, that'll make you popular if you make it to the show, getting you out there with anybody else that loves hitting the links. And the dog you mentioned, tell us, I was creeping on your Instagram a little bit. That's part of the journalistic research. It's a pug, right? What's the name? How long you had it?
It is a pug. So he's a pug. He's 3. His name is actually Gup. It's pug backwards. I know. I know.
Is Gup going to be making the trips with you when you head down to Florida and then hopefully New York?
I don't think he's going to come to Florida, but he should be with me for the season.
I love it. Everyone could use a good dog to get through the baseball season. What about
that's huge.
Yeah. What about entertainment stuff? Music, movies, TV? Anything specifically you're really into these days?
Pretty standard, I guess. I'll make some dinner and whatever we got on TV. We're in an Airbnb with a couple of my buddies from all over right now, training in Charlotte. So we'll throw on. We were just watching the Tiger Woods documentary the past couple nights, and then we'll throw on whatever random movie catches our eye or whatever it is, or play some FIFA, whatever we got going that night. We'll make it interesting.
So you really are doing the whole golf transformation. You got the Tiger documentaries, you're playing, got your own clubs. I love it. Who's your go-to team on FIFA? I'm a huge soccer guy, so I always love it.
So I haven't been playing much FIFA at all. My buddy Curtis is kind of just showing me the ropes, but I barely even know the teams, to be honest.
All right. Well, I'm a big Portugal guy, so you can't go wrong with Portugal or Ronaldo on Juventus. I mean, that's my advice to you. I want to ask you then too about the hair, because you watched clips of you back when you were, AAA, AA, a couple of years back. The lettuce was a little bit longer. You had a little bit more flow. I'm seeing you now. It's a little bit tighter trimmed. Is this the look to stay now, or are you going to get back into game, shape with the hair?
I don't know. It definitely could come back at some point. I think with the new job, I feel like I got to clean it up a little bit. First day, can't come in looking too sloppy.
That's fair.
Yeah. So maybe I think I'm going to trim it up maybe another time before spring training, and then kind of see what happens after the season or once the season starts.
All right, man. Well, good luck for you. If you need any recommendations for any places to get the haircuts in New York, I'm sure social media can help you out. Um,
Absolutely.
New York is the goal. You're in Charlotte right now, North Carolina for the offseason. Grew up in Tennessee. Most of your minor league career was in the South because of the affiliates that you ended up on. What is it about New York? I'll ask you a couple questions. What's the thing that makes you most nervous, maybe, about potentially living in New York City, working here full time?
So actually, this summer when I went on a taxi squad to Yankee Stadium was the first time I went to New York, and I
No kidding.
remember, yeah, and I remember getting to the hotel, and we got up to our rooms, and I think I was on like the 42nd floor or something, and I look out, and I'm just like, dude, this is crazy. Like people live like this, you know? It's just so like the buzz in the city, you can almost feel it when you get in there. And even though it was a little weirder because I know a bunch of people have been moving out or whatever it was, and no one's doing too much eating indoors or anything like that. But it was definitely different. It made me really excited.
What are you most excited about? That'll be my next thing about New York. A lot of unique things about living and potentially playing for the Mets here. So what's top of your list for maybe the most exciting thing about being up here?
Ooh, so I'm a huge coffee guy. I'll definitely have to find some good coffee, which I'm sure wouldn't be too hard in a
Yeah.
big city. And then the pizza, I'm definitely looking forward to.
I think there's a couple good pizza places around here too. I'm not sure. I think you'll have to just find out. But I think pizza can be something we can arrange for you. It'll be good. And then, what are you most excited for baseball wise? Just, I'm sure you've been chomping at the bit since you signed that contract. What about playing for the Mets or in the NL East, or maybe making a big league club in particular in general? What are you looking forward to most on the diamond?
I think really being our clubhouse around, the type of names that we have, the guys that have been doing it for a long time, a long track record of success, just kind of picking everyone's brain in any way I can, how they go about things, how they go into a day where they know they're pitching, how they, take days after, what they work on in between games, just little things.
Well, Sam, it's an exciting season coming up for all of us with the Mets, all the Mets fans. A lot of high expectations because we do got a lot of great talent on this team, and my hope really is that you get to be a huge part of it. And after everything that we saw coming out of you last year, I think it's going to be a great season for you and a great thing to be a part of as this team moves into a new era. So, best of luck, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Sam, enjoy the rest of your off season, and we hope to see you at Citi Field real soon. And for all you guys, thanks for hanging out.